Getting better in MotoGP 20, first and foremost, requires practice, and after the practice, even more practice. But don't worry, to make it easier I have some helpful advice for you. I'm AndrewZH and I am the 2019 MotoGP Esports World Champion. Unfortunately, there aren't any magic tricks to instantly race at the highest level, but knowing which aspects of the game are the hardest to learn already gives you an advantage and helps you practicing. Let's dive right into one of the topics many are afraid of: driving in the wet. Don't panic, it may seem hard, but it actually is quite easy to do. When approaching a race in the wet, you just have to remember two things: drive precisely and drive smoothly. Always seize onto the accelerator and brakes, and don't just smash them down. Especially the front brake is something you should be aware of. Braking too hard will just lead to you locking up and crashing. But to really get the most of such a race, there is also the ever important setup beforehand. I normally soften the suspension from a number ranging from 0 to 5 or 6, just to get that extra grip. I'd also recommend adjusting your traction control as well as the engine brake. My usual setup for this would be a 4 on traction control and a 3 for the engine brake. From such a general topic, let's move on to something you can directly implement in each and every race, something that is crucial to have on your bike: the right tires. At least if we aren't talking about outlap. No matter the track or racing conditions, for outlap, it's soft tires all the way. If you're thinking about a normal race on the other hand, you should usually have the same tire compound on the front and back, but sometimes you should even go with a harder one on the rear, as this accelerates the bike and thus gets hotter and wears faster. This is why I recommend going with medium tires on a short track, or even a medium for the front and a hard for the rear. On a track with a lot of corners, like Mugello, I'd even recommend going with hard tires all around. But the corners aren't the only reason for it. There is also the track temperature, which is simulated in MotoGP 20. Because of the high temperature at Mugello or Qatar, for example, you burn through your tires even faster, so go with harder tires for them. If everything up till now seemed a bit too in-depth for you, or you just want to refresh your basics, go check out my beginner's guide for MotoGP 20. But what if we move onto the wet track? As you might have expected, we have to go with softer tires to still have enough grip available to us. For Mugello, for example, you can give the medium tires a try instead of being solely focused on the hard ones. All of these things may be helpful, but sooner or later you are going to encounter a track you never raced on before. So the question arises: how do I approach a new track, modify my setup accordingly? I divided my training into 3 integral parts for that. First up, to really learn the ins and outs of the track, I go for the time attack. I instantly see if I was faster or slower than the lap before and can thus optimize and adjust my driving accordingly. The second part for me is to find a racing strategy. For this I drive about 10 laps of the track. Afterwards I see my total time, how much fuel I have left and how my tires look. So I have a good grasp from the default setup of where I can still squeeze out more time. With this information I move on to the last part, adjusting my setup. Depending on what I experienced on the track, I adjust everything to my liking. After I'm done, I start from the top again. I take on a new time attack to find out instantly if I am faster with the adjusted parameters. Then I check them against my previous time in a longer race. And if I am still not happy, I optimize my setup once again. Rinse and repeat, and you not only learn the track at a good pace, but also figure out what kind of setup is the most beneficial for you. A lot easier than learning a new track is finding the best controller setup. It may sound weird to some of you, but at all the tournaments I visited, the vast majority of players use the standard controller configuration, myself included. Obviously, you can change settings if you feel like it will improve your performance, but you can rest assured knowing that you don't have to. Something you definitely should consider on the other hand is liking this video and subscribing to the Overtake YouTube channel. Finally, we have to talk about braking. You may already feel like there is no room for improvement here, but don't be too sure. It is one of the most essential things in racing, but also one of the hardest to grasp. Especially because you don't have just one brake on your motorcycle, so make sure you use both the right way. When you reach the braking point before a slow corner, use both the front and the rear brake. Hold both buttons as hard as possible. While the bike is slowing down, you also need to downshift quickly to the third gear. Then keep slowing down to the second or even the first one, depending on the corner. It is important to downshift at the right engine revolutions to avoid a crash. While you are entering the corner, slowly let the front brake go and keep holding the rear one. At the end of the braking part, only apply some short touches to the front brake button, otherwise you will crash. Once the bike has turned and you have entered the corner, release the brakes completely. If you're talking about a race in the wet, you have to be even smoother and not brake as hard. This means braking earlier, so you can still keep your bike under control. Never brake with all your strength, you'll only end up hitting the wet tarmac if you do. With these tips and tricks, you can fail to improve even more. If you like this content, check out our setup guide for some more detailed insights into how I set up my bikes. For more esports racing content in general, visit overtake.gg or our YouTube and other social channels. And I will see you guys on the track.